Hello, wherever, whenever, whoever, and indeed whatever you are, welcome to part 2 of the Deforum masking tutorial. If you cast your minds back to part 1, we brought in a source video of a chappie walking across a field in a fetching boiler suit, and then we used the hybrid video human masking feature to create a mask of that character, and then we used Deforum to affect only the masked area, which resulted in our besuited gentleman being turned into some sort of a twisted cyborg. For this tutorial, we're going to use a similar technique, but instead of affecting the character, we only wish to affect the background. Now, rather than use our boiler-suited chappie, we're going to use a friend of mine called Kevin, and here he is auditioning for the next round of X Factor. There he is, doing a great dance and looking great. Thanks for that, Kevin. Between you and I don't think he's got a chance in hell, but I don't want to destroy his dreams. I did tell him I would feature his video in this tutorial in the hope that that would increase the number of likes he'll get, which he won't. Okay, so we're going to use that. Now, I'm going to use a slightly different approach for this one, just to demonstrate that these approaches are available to you. So I could have brought in the mask like I did in the previous tutorial and just diffused the masked area. But I wanted to save some time. I was in a rush, so I just brought in the source video and I did the normal Deforum thing, and I converted the entirety of the source video, that is the foreground and the background, into something different. And that ended up looking like this. Okay, so Kevin's been turned into a sort of a porcelain android. You can see how the background's going all crazy, but it looks pretty good. And if you can look in the bottom right-hand corner, Deforum literally interpreted the prompt Android and put a Google Android in the corner there. I've just spotted that. All right, so that's the entirety of the video has been affected by the diffusion process, but we just want to change the background and leave the Android Kevin in place. Okay, so let's do that. We have a masked video, which I created using Hybrid's human masking feature. You should be familiar with this already if you look at part 1. It's done a pretty good job of picking up his hair and the movement, so we've got a good mask there which we can use. So that's all we need. We've got a source video which has been diffused already, looking like an android, and we have a mask. And it's with those two that we can do our magic. So let's switch over to Deforum. Okay, here we are in Deforum. Completely default settings. I'm going to whiz through these. I'm using a safe tensor model, Lyreal, however you want to call it. It gives me some good results. Sticking to the same sampler, Euler A, going to bump up the steps a little bit. The width is going to be portrait mode, so I'm going to do 448 by 832. That's the closest to 480 by 852 by 480 that I can get. Let's give the batch a different name. Let's call this Kevin background. I'm going to leave the time string on there for my own purposes. In the keyframes, we can stick to 2D animation mode. We're not using video input. We're just going to use one of the animation modes. I'll set the cadence to 1. I want every frame to be affected. I'm going to get rid of any motion. You can leave motion in there if you want to, but I'm not going to. So leave the zoom as 1. Noise, leave that as it is. Coherence, I'm happy with lab. Nothing else is going to change there. Maybe going to bump up the strength schedule to 0.75. CFG, yep, that's okay. And I'm going to do, I love ladder, so I'm going to use the ladder seed behavior. That's all we need to do in terms of the setup there in keyframes. Now let's jump over to the init tab. This is where some of the most important settings are. So in the video init, we want to specify our source video, okay, the one of Kevin turned into an android. So let's go back to my video, do copy as path, and paste the path into here. There we go. And now we want to say user mask video. So we turn that on and we go back to our sources, and I'm going to choose the mask video, copy as path, paste that, boom. Okay, that's part one done. There is a tab called mask init, and mask init does affect what's happening in the video init tab if there's a mask specified. Do not switch on use mask, because that means use a mask image, which we don't want to use. We don't need to say use alpha because we're not using a video source, we're using a mask video source. But we do want to invert the mask. So rather than affect Kevin, I want it to turn Kevin, who's currently white, into a black portion, and therefore the black portion of the mask will turn into white, and white is what will be affected, which is the background. So we do invert mask, leave overlay mask switched on, leave blur as it is. I like to fill the mask with a bit of latent noise. We don't need full res mask switched on either. Okay, so that's the mask set up. We're not going to do any control netting. However, because we're in 2D mode, not video input, but we're specifying a video, we do need to switch on hybrid video because it'll need to extract those frames. And if it doesn't extract the frames, you get an error. That's interesting, isn't it? So we can do generate input frames, turn on hybrid composite. That's pretty much all we need to do. You can turn on optical flow if you want to, and we can leave it there. Don't even have to do anything else. In the output tab, set the FPS frames per second to be the same as my source. I'll do that as 30. And then lastly, we just need to make sure we have a decent prompt. Now, you could use the default Deforum prompts, so you would get a cute swamp bunny, an anthropomorphic cat, a coconut, and a durian, but I want to change it to something a little bit more consistent. So I have a prompt over here in a text file, very simple. I'll copy that and I'll go over to my frame 0 prompt and replace all of that with this. So an endless expanse of smoke, starry universe. So I'm just using some keywords, and those keywords are tied to a couple of LoRa's which I've imported, the smoky one and the stars, starry sky, sort of cloudy one as well. All right, so that's that. It's really dead simple. So I'm going to run this. We've got everything set up. Everything's looking good. Double check. Looking fine. No motion parameters. Strength seems fine. So, and then we will hit the generate button. One thing to note with Deforum is that what you see in the generate panel over here is simply what Stable Diffusion is rendering. It's not necessarily what you'll get as a final output, because then Deforum does a whole bunch of other stuff to those rendered images. So this can cause some confusion. People say, oh, it isn't doing what I want it to do, but in fact the output images in your folder will be the true thing. The thing you're seeing here is almost like a step towards the thing that you want. Okay, I do not have an ultra-fast GPU. I'm running on a 3090 Ti with 24 gig of video RAM. So I'm going to hit the generate button and speed up the video. So I will see you when it's done. I'm going to nip off for a cup of tea. We're back. The animation is finished. Let's click here after generation to show the video. Let's see how Kevin has come out. So as you can see now, we have the original Kevin as an android, but the background has been changed to smoke. It's as simple as that. If we compare that with the original diffuse version of Kevin, it's subtly different. Okay, you can see how, there we go, put them side by side. In one version on the left, you have Kevin with the original background, and then the one on the right, that background has been turned into smoky particles. But of course, depending on your prompt, you can do all sorts of radical things. That's that. Super quick. Hope you enjoyed it. Experiment. You could obviously start playing around with control nets. You could maybe try changing the hybrid motion. whatever you want to do. Okay, that's it for now. Nice and quick. See you later. Bye-bye.